by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Thanking the Creator of heaven and earth once again for life, food, clothing, and shelter. And I'm thankful to the Creator for knowledge, wisdom, and above all, understanding. We thank the Most High God for all things and everything, and I pray that the Creator will continue to be with each and every one of us, even those of you who are on this channel, on this platform. Pray that the Creator continue to be with all of you and bless each and every one of you. As we missed last week because I was on vacation, we are going to pick things back up this week. And I believe that Nasik Zurishaddai will be doing 2 psalms to make up for last week also. So without any further ado, we're going to move straight. Oh, giving due respect to the leadership of our congregation, even my brother, Chief Prince Yehudah being Saskar, praying that the Most High God be with him and his family, his household, that the Creator will bless them and keep them. So moving right ahead, I'm going to pass things on to one of my teachers, and even one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem, good. First of all, I'd like to say, giving praises to the Supreme Son Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform I'm on, the D.C.B. channel platform, Chief Prince Reuben and Judah, spiritual leader, and also to the host, Chief Uziel, to the princes, chiefs, brothers, sisters, Maureen, Connie, the rabbinate. I greet you in the time of forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom. First, I'd like to say, Adonai Sabtadi Dakovi Yagi Tina Teaka, O Lord, on my lips. My mouth should declare that praise. Well, we've been a moment, and I know it's been a lot of, seasonal holidays, on both, for those that, observe certain days, and those that, we ourselves that went through a Hanukkah season and Hanukkah, which is really, it means a dedication season. And also this, for those who may not realize that, this, I'm doing it on a secular New Year day, which is 2023, according to the Roman calendar. So those that's made a change, I just, say, may this year be a good year for, everybody, and better than the year before. We, observe, a different time. We know we still also have to monitor the secular New Year. So, we since we all pretty much have those calendars and operate on that same frequency, we look for good for everyone in the world. That everybody get better and everybody being the Creator's grace. So after saying that, I'm going to try to be quick because there's 2 very impactful citrus that the one I didn't get a chance to cover was Mikwates, and most people say Mikates, which means at the end of the year is when Joseph just come out of the prison. So there's so much stuff in there that I know I'm not going to do justice glossing over, but hopefully I could try to bring out a few views for, very deep thought to be considered in there. And then we go into Vayigash, when Yehudah approached Joseph and he make himself known to his brethren. So with that being said, and I'm trying to monitor my time, and then we covering, and the portion that go with Mikhates, which is an interesting portion. And in case the Haftorah that normally went with it was 1 Kings 3rd chapter and 15th verse, and goes to the 4th chapter and the 1st verse. And the portion that goes with Vayigash, just to sort of expedite things, the Haftorah to go with that would be Ezekiel 37 chapter, 15th verse, going to the 28th verse. Now going back to Michais, and I'm saying this way so maybe people might not jot it down. The psalm we'd be doing with Michais would be 40, the 40th psalm, but that I'm just going to touch on a few verses on that, and then I'll be concentrating on spending more time on the 48th psalm, which goes along with Vayigash. All right, so some things I like to bring out in the highlights in this particular portion. Let me get these other glasses. Eventually, I fix them up. And in the 44th chapter, as it open up, and 41st chapter, sorry, 41st chapter of Genesis. In my case, I'll just read a few lines and highlight some things. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, well-favored and fat flesh, and they fed on the reed grass. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 ears thin and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and for all the wise men there. All right. But we know, as we go through this particular book, Michais, at the end of 2 full years, we notice that Joseph was in prison, and he spent a total, in prison of 12 years in prison. And we could check it out later on, as we go through it, but he spent 12 years in prison, 2 years depending on the butler, to speak on his behalf. Now, let's look at the dream. This will we conclude the dreams of the book of Bereshit, where we have a lot of dreams in the book of Bereshit. So, in this episode dealing with this particular guy, Joseph, dreams plays an important part in his life, for good and for bad. But what's interesting is that I want to point out some things to consider, because we already know how most of us know how the story ends, and with the interpretation there, looking in the future. But some things to consider. When we talk about the 7 cows coming out, or kinds, which is most people in America or Western cultures would say, cows. But in actuality, in that part of the world, it would be hippos. We got to think of where we at. We're talking about in Egypt. Egypt, was considered by most the gift of the Nile. So you won't have cows like we think about in America. That won't be coming out the river. That would have been bizarre in itself. But what normally would come out the river was the hippopotamus, which is one of the gods that the Egyptians worship anyway, the hippo. So that's something to consider. The identification of the type of beast we're talking about in this dream. And then also in that part of the world, they didn't really focus on growing a lot of corn like we think of in America. We think about it's more wheat, grain, those type of things in that part of the world. So I just want to make sure we get the idea that we're talking about a place somewhere, in a place in Egypt, which is in the continent of Africa, that we know that we're talking about what is really normal in that region, which is hippopotamus being in the river, along with all the crocodiles and fish and stuff like that. And that grain is a more staple thing that they dealt with in that part of the world. So mostly corn as we know it, for the most part. I'm not saying 100%, but for the most part, it's what they consider a new world thing from the Americas. All right, so that I want to make sure we have a clear understanding on that in itself. And then the first dream didn't alarm them, with ill-favored hippos eating, well-favored, and then same thing. But the second one alarmed them with the wheat, the grain, and you wonder when you call all the people that's alarmed them because the grain ate the healthy grain, the ill-favored grain ate the healthy grain. Several things to consider. When Joseph gives the interpretation of the dream and he explains the dream, and then Joseph, the story is twisted slightly. It's different variables, and I implore people to go back over to see the way the dream is described in the beginning, how Pharaoh tell it to his servants, and how they tell it to Joseph, the dream. So you're gonna have some variables within the dream. And then when we look even closer within that, in the matter of the dream, that Joseph just gave the interpretation of 7 years of plenty and 7 years, of famine. In both dreams, and said both dreams are one. And when he said the interpretations in the dream, Pharaoh knew what was the answer because people couldn't give him an answer that Pharaoh was satisfied with. So Joseph points out that you already knew and understood the answer, but you really couldn't believe the answer that you seen, or you forgot the answer itself. All right, but you were shown the answer. So difficult when we read and we know that us guys can figure that out. When you're talking about, the gift of the now, we're talking about prosperity, you're talking about ill-favored, and then you're talking about grain. Why they couldn't figure that out? And it made it so, and Joseph made it so simple. All right. So those are some of the things we know that, the Creator allowed Joseph, that was part of his liberation from the house of incarceration, which was actually the prison, but none of them could figure this out. And I like to just throw this out there to consider. If Joseph say 7 years of famine and 7 years of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, then what would be puzzling is how can you have a famine and plenty at the same time? It's like saying, I'm eating, I'm full, and hungry at the same time. So that makes a little difficulty when we try to examine that, because now you got plenty and you got famine. So you got prosperity and depression operating alongside of one another, but yet the focus is on the depression, and depression being dominated. And then what's even more puzzling, the weak is overpowering the mighty. Because if you ill-favored, if you're a weakling, scrawny, how could you be devouring something more well-built, healthier than you? And then another thing to consider, since when grains have a mouth, that's the one that really alarms them. Grain is eaten and usually don't eat. So you can see that the beast would eat up beasts, but how do grain eat grain? So those are some of the puzzling things to discuss and look at it. And then and if a guy's a tyrant or a leader, You don't want the people you oppress to wind up being stronger than you. And this portion is always read during Hanukkah season, you know, and it's placed near the Hanukkah season, which just passed, in reference to the wheat, which is, you know, Judas Maccabee and his brothers in, you know, in Israel fighting against the Syrian Greeks, for the be able to observe Torah. So those are some of the things to consider in that area. Then Joseph not only interpreted the dream, but he gave him, a bonus by giving him a solution. See, a lot of times people interpret a dream or tell you your problem, but they don't tell you how to solve your problem. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I can figure that. I figure that out. I see what your problem is. Your problem is thus and thus and thus and thus." Okay. Well, I see that myself. That's a problem. What I need from you, if I'm telling you this, is how to fix it. What am I supposed to do? Pharaoh just wanted somebody to interpret, but Joseph went further and said, it's not just enough for me to interpret, but also I need to show you how to fix this. Because now if the famine, such as the world had never seen, then that means it's going to affect other people other than yourself. So Joseph became a person where he cared about other individuals, not just himself. So this is one of the things as he got his promotion. So we're going to move past that little part there. And we're going to go into the thing where even his suggestion of saving. One of the things about saving is that who save when things are doing good? When you got plenty. You know, you got abundance. And some interpretations might say each of those years within that 7-year period, you know, from when you look at the reading and the writing, you know, from the Hebrew perspective, it was appear like in 1 year, you got 7 years worth of produce. So for 7 years, you got so much abundance that normally you would tend to be squandering and wasting things. No, well, most people, when you say got such an abundance, you don't try to save it because it just flow all over the place. Joseph gave a marvel idea to say, we start penny pinching and saving when things get tight. But we don't think about preserving and penny pinching when things are in plenty. And that's what most of us, because that's not natural for us. But it's a wise thing to do because we're told certain things in our way of life that in time of peace, prepare for war. In a time of war, prepare for peace. We're working on the opposite spectrum of things. But so much for that. You know, I just want to, throw those things out. So, and just to be brief. And then to go a little bit further, let's look at that. Jacob sends his sons down to Egypt in the 42nd chapter. All right. And when Joseph, and I like to read this here, but Jacob would send Benjamin down there. But this is an important point I want to bring out in the 42nd chapter. Now Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, and Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you I hope we didn't lose anything on this here. I hope we didn't lose anything. Hopefully everything's working good. I know we had a few glitches last time. I have to apologize for that. I just do what I do from my end. So I don't know what happened with the Wi-Fi. So I had to apologize also for that for last time, because I understood some stuff might have been choppy. All right. So it says, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the earth, and Joseph saw his brothers, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spoke roughly with them. And he said unto them, whence came ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies to see the nakedness of the land, ye are come. And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's son. We are upright men. Thy servants are no spies. Now we know some of the history of our people, and we know it's been a while. We're going on close to 22 years. That Joseph, is away, close to 22 years. And when you look at that time span, and you would say, how could they say they're righteous individuals? People change. People repent in life and grow up in life and develop in life. Joseph, when he was younger, brought up an evil report concerning his brothers. But here, later on, he took concern for, his fellow inmates at the time. Took a concern and asked him a question. And interpreted dreams for him. So after that, we know that he recognized them, didn't recognize him. Now the questions always asked, how did he recognize them? Well, he's younger. The most, and I would like to emphasize, the most Joseph could be younger than Reuben is 7 years. That's the most, 7 years. Because within a span of 7 years' time, because he worked 7 years, and then he got, duped with Leah, and then he worked a week for Leah, and then he got Raquel, but he had to put in another 7 years. All those children that he had, except for Benjamin, was born within the 7-year period. All of them, except for Benjamin. The 6 years he stayed there working for cattle. And a lot of times we think about the big age gap and stuff like that. And we know in our families, sometimes you could be 7 years older than your brother, and your brother is almost at your shoulder, in a short period of time. And sometimes your brother outgrow you. So, and then what happens is the older brothers is not so much focusing looking at the younger brothers. It's the younger brothers tend to look at the older brothers. And I shared a story before, when it's something that happened in my life with a brother. And if you look at YouTube, I'll share it again, but sometimes, people just don't recognize, siblings if you don't be around each other for quite a while. All right, so let's go forward just a little bit. And it said that after he spoke rough to him, and then when we know that he automatically wound up, putting them in jail, in 17th verse, it said, and he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the third day, do this and live, for I fear God. If you be upright men, let one of your brethren be bound in your prison house. But go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the distress of his soul. when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, spoke I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child? And you would not hear. Therefore also, behold, his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for the interpreter was between them. And he turned about from them and wept, and he returned to them, and he spoke to them, and took Simeon from among them, and bound him before their eyes. All right. So, the reason I'm bringing this this point here and read that thoroughly, because it's a picture that needs to be seen here. Though they seemed at first, when I just read that they agreed to give up one of them, they couldn't give up one of their brothers. That's why it's focused on that he took Simeon, because nobody ever say, I'm gonna give up Larry, I'm gonna give up Simeon, I'm gonna give up Judah, I'm gonna give up Asher, give up one of the handmaid kids. You know what I mean? They're not as valuable as us. Give up Dan, give up Asher, give up Gad or something. Anybody that they were just that tight and so concerned about one another that they wasn't about to give up their brother. And that's why it's focused on that he took Simeon. And it's always a question why he took Simeon as opposed to Joseph. But he understood that other than Reuben, anybody else. Reuben himself was the oldest last he left. Reuben was pretty much the leader last he left. But he heard Reuben speaking that he wasn't against what happened to him. And also, this is the first time they find, you're gonna start to find out that they are responsible for his slavery. They are responsible for it. So I just want to bring out those little points there before I move on a little bit. And so he took Shimon and everything like that. We know how the story goes. And when they found their money in their sack and everything, they went back. So, and they sat down to eat, and they told their father the whole story. Now, imagine how Simeon must have felt. He's taken and left behind. The other brothers said to leave and go back and report to the father. All that happened. Now, there's two sons of Jacob missing, as far as he's concerned. Joseph himself, and his son. Those guys. So that brings it down to 10. So now they sit and eat, and it'll be a while before the food is finished. And one of the things is that when we go into the next portion, before we go into Vayigash, all right, and I want you to bring this out before we go into Vayigash. Marvin, the portion taken of them. Okay. That when it came down to I just want to bring out this point about in the 43rd chapter. And in the 43rd chapter, it says that, and the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn, they had eaten up, that they had brought out of Egypt, that their father said unto them, go again, buy us a little food. All right. Now, before that, in the 42nd chapter, I must bring this out because there's a lot of talk about this 37th verse. When Jacob was afraid to send Benjamin down there, and they told him about that, and Jacob mentions that Joseph was not, Simeon's not, and you would take Benjamin away. Upon me are all these things come. Jacob thinks it's because of his actions. Something to consider and discuss. But the 37th verse says, and Reuben spoke unto his father, saying, thou shalt slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him unto my hand, and I will bring him back to thee. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is only, is left. If harm befall him by the way in which ye go, then will ye bring down my gray hairs in sorrow to the grave. Now, the reason I want to read that about Reuben, because I always say you got to take the whole viewpoint and look at different perspectives. None of these guys are ignorant, morons. So since Reuben would make that statement, do Reuben believe, and this is the question y'all should discuss, do Reuben actually believe that his father would kill his grandsons? That's something to think about, to consider. That he placed them on the table. And then we know automatically that when Reuben, and I'm going to fast forward this just a little bit, I'm watching my time somewhat. When Reuben, realized, that they can't go without Benjamin, and he asked for Benjamin, and we read where Reuben tried to save Joseph, but he failed. He tried to save Joseph, but he failed. They was bent on killing him after he stopped the killing, and they went back to wanting to kill him. That's why Yehudah said, what purpose if we, shed his blood? That means Reuben gone. His intentions, we read in the scriptures, were genuine that he was trying to get him back. Was it the best way? That's a whole nother story. Was it, the best move? Was his methods great? That's something to discuss as well. But the thing was, his intention was to save Joseph and bring him back, from the hand of his brothers, because he's the only one out the 9 that didn't want to kill him. So when you think on that level, that you had 9 brothers want to kill you, only 1 don't want to kill you. And so that says something to a character. And then when we look further into the situation, is that your grandfather, so Reuben's grandfather's name is Isaac. We all know that. And the great-grandfather, Isaac had to tell the story that his father Abraham was about to slay him one day. And he didn't slay him. So just throwing some things out for thought. But his father was about to slay him, but he didn't slay him. Then it said an angel cried out, not God, an angel cried out and said, Abraham, Abraham, touch not nor harm the lad. Abraham heard the angel. It never read where Isaac heard that shout. You heard that call was for Abraham, not for Isaac. Isaac being bound on the altar to be slaughtered. We noticed that Isaac lived in a different area from Abraham. So how did that, if God, and you figure God being in the area of salvation, make the crooked path straight, that he know automatically if that was seem somewhat hard on his grandfather, to carry a legacy of his father who almost slit his throat, and he was saved, then could it be Reuben saying that maybe we should turn to God? Maybe we should turn to God. If you don't believe that, and then I'm just going to throw another variable out as we go forward. But I'm sure I would get a lot of viewpoints. But this is just some things I'll just say we could look at from different angles. All right, not saying I'm changing and feeding into a story. I'm bringing out some things that actually existed in the story and trying to see if I could come up with any reason, because this guy is not a moron in that sense. None of the patriarchs was actually a moron of the tribes. So now let's look further. When Judah told him, look, send the boy with me, and you know, if I don't bring him back, I'll bear the blame forever. And then, so now, one guy gave you a physical guarantee of how committed he is, because he don't want to lose his children either. And Yehudah gives you a spiritual guarantee, because now, if you don't bring Benjamin back, and he said he bear the blame forever, would you not, as a father, feel a certain way? How you gonna be blamed? I'm gonna blame myself for giving in to you and losing him at the same time. I haven't gotten over Yosef. I already got 2 guys gone, and now if he don't come back, then you wonder. This is Jacob, our patriarch. This is an angel, a man that wrestled with an angel and prevailed. This is a man that had brothers that hate him, and he had to flee, you know. But yet, this individual, when we look at Jacob himself, and we look at the you know, this individual in the scenario is to lose 2 children, 2 sons. But he agreed, and then Jacob said, all right, he did several things. Double the money with some gifts, and he prayed. And he said, be bereaved, be bereaved. But what's the rationale that we got to look at further? One of the rationales we got to look at further that Jacob gave in, because here it is that you're going to lose, you're going to take a chance and worry about 1 son being left or taken from you, as opposed to your whole family dying in the famine. Because he the one said, go get us food lest we die. He said that. So the famine was real and was just sore, and he's still in the land. And, you know, you're one of the things, well, why didn't you pray to God and say, is it another way? But he said for God to give, you know, guide them on the way, you know, in that sense. So those are some of the things to think about, that we all die. If you don't want to send Benjamin, we just starve to death here. Or we take a chance and hopefully Benjamin be all right going there and coming back. And the man be a man of his word. Those things there, you know, I mean, that's something to consider. But I'm not going to belabor that too much. We know automatically that when they got down there, that you know, Joseph wound up, you know, giving, you know, setting them up, treating them well and everything like that, and to set them according to their birth. And they're having a good time. Then next thing you know, at the end of the story, Benjamin winds up with this silver goblet in his bag, and it was made. He was made to look like a thief. So we going on to after they come back, you know, and one of the rash statements that whoever it be found with, you know, let them be put to death. Now, for a goblet, do a man need to be put to death for a goblet, for a cup, for some silver? That's a rash situation, you know. And, you know, it's always, you know, we assume, you know, that was Yehudah because he tended to be the spokesperson there. So we were, you know, safely assume that, but there's no definitive thing here other than maybe rabbinic literature and stuff like that, which is still not definitive in the scriptures identifying who said that, you know, let me put to death. And then they're saying that, you know, we are your servants when they got caught and they come on back. All right. So it's strange that Benjamin is the one that, you know, that could possibly be a suspect, because his mother took something when they left Laban. You know, so, you know, those are some things to consider as we go along. And where they would believe, you know, really believe that it could have been Benjamin, because it's from that side of the family that things were stolen before. So being it from that side of the family, we would say, oh, that might have sounded like him, might appear. But imagine Benjamin knowing that he didn't take it, but everybody else didn't think no one took it. And yet, that's why they made such a bold statement. But didn't Yaakov himself made such a bold statement when Rachel stole the idols and said, if it be found, whoever the idols are found with, let them be put to death. So, Laban didn't find the idols, but Yaakov made such a strong statement on some idols, and he's wealthy. So sometimes, when we think about the sons, the fruit don't sometimes fall too far from the tree, so to speak. Those are things I like to bring out and highlight as we go forward, as I'm, just skimming through this here. Now, I'm just going to go back to the Vayigash. And Vayigash, this is one of my favorite portions of the Sidrotes in the book of Genesis. And this is one of the most touching scenes, because now I read, we know that they said they all offered, be slaves, but when they all offered to be slaves, and Yehudah offered to be, sacrifice himself for Binyamin. Well, one of the things that we find here that's really powerful, I find, is that the verdict was already made by the Yosef. In ancient times, when a king, or a lord, but Yosef like a king, make a verdict, a court case, and he come to a decision in a court case, it's never, ever reversed. Never, ever reversed. Once the verdict is brought in, there's no appeal to overturn the verdict. The best you might ask is if there's a way I could lighten the sentence, if there's a way that I could pay off some of the, some will be so bad. But there's nowhere, even in our law, when the judges judge a case and come to a decision, there's no appeal to the judge's decision, but you can also have some mercy within it. So that's why when the judges judge, you got to judge righteously, and you got to be thorough, thorough investigation, because once the decision is made, that's it, and especially in ancient times. All right, so Yehudah make this approach and with Vayigash, and it goes on the 44th chapter, the 18th verse. It said, then Yehudah came unto him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ear, and let thy anger burn against thy servant. Let not thy anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servant, saying, have ye a father, a brother? And we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. And thou saidst unto thy servants, bring him down unto me, that I may set my eyes upon him. And we said unto my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And thou didst say unto thy servants, except your youngest brother come down with you, ye shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came up unto thy servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord, and our father said, go again, buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go down if our youngest brother be, if our youngest brother be with us, then we will go down. For we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. And thy father, and thy servant, my father, said unto us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn in pieces, and I've seen him since. And ye take this one also from me, and harm before him, you will bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. All right. So now, I just want to read a little bit of that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing on that. But one of the things is the touching story is that, one, the verdict was cast, and this is ancient times, that Yehudah said, I want to speak a word in your ear. And he approached him. Now the approach, the word, Vayigash, literally Vayigash, is used 3 times, in the Tanakh, the actual literal word. But we know Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. But you find it in Genesis with Abraham in the 18th chapter talking concerning Sodom and Gomorrah. You find it also in this particular portion right here with Yehudah. And the latter part you find in the book of 18th Kings with Elijah, when he approached the Creator. So that word Vayigash is used 3 times in the Tanakh, it's literally like that. But what's impressive is that if I'm speaking to you through an interpreter already, and not only I'm speaking to you through an interpreter, but I'm already in earshot of you. In other words, you can hear me. I'm not down the block, around the corner, 2 miles down, whatever the case is. I'm in the same room in your presence. So why do I need to speak in your ear? This is a statement that, because you might not pick it up, the tonation from the English pretty much. But that means that you really don't understand what I mean. You don't understand the seriousness of this. And this is Yehudah approaching what you consider a judge or a king, not knowing that that's his brother. You don't understand the dynamics that you have here. I offer to trade places. So now one of the things is that Yehudah would say, I'm better than everybody else. And then he also explained why he's the one spoke up, because he made a surety for the lad. Not that anybody else would have, no one else would have spoke up on behalf of the lad, but Yehudah made a surety for the lad. Also, it was his idea to sell somebody in slavery in the first place, which was Joseph. He the one come up with the idea, we can make some money out this deal. So now, knowing to go into slavery, he volunteered to go in slavery to save Benjamin, because he didn't want to face his father. All right, so we know, long story short, that when Yehudah brings out that information concerning what happened in the past, that we find also that the man asked a straight lead. We find things that when Yaakov said, why would you deal with me so ill by giving him so much information? We find here, when he's talking in the presence of Yosef, that if the information was false, what they asked him before, what they told their father, which we haven't read before, then Yosef could say, I never said that. So by proxy of Yosef being silent on that issue, that's confirmed that some things is not always written directly in the scripture, but we don't get all the different details because the book would be too heavy. But one of the things we got to look at and take into consideration is that Yehudah changed the dynamic of the case. And it's important for you to realize that it's no longer talking about the theft that was done. It's no longer talking about the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator of the theft, himself. The focus now is on somebody who never made it there. So do you have any kindness? When you talk about, when you talk about justice and truth, do you have any kindness and mercy? Do you have any kind of kindness and mercy or compassion for another human being? This way Yehudah took the focus off of Benjamin, the focus off the crime, and focus on a compassion for a man that's up in age, that already lost some things. So if Joseph said he feared God, then if he feared God, do he fear God in such a way that he have compassion for a fellow human being? So these are some of the things we got to try to grasp from this here. I know I'm not going jumping here and there a little bit on that, but trying to condense as much as I can in here. And we know that, Joseph cried and he identified himself. And the first thing he said is, my father still alive. One thing I like to bring out in that, and then I'm going to move into the psalm, is that if my father is my father still alive? Why didn't just say that is our father still alive? Because he could identify with his father as being a hated brother, and he was hated amongst his brothers. He was hated. So that could be one area to discuss, that he say, is my father still alive, instead of saying our father is still alive. Just something to consider as we move on. And then, because he could identify that my father was a hated one in the family, by his brother. You was hated by his brother. I was hated by my brother. So I could identify with my father a little bit more than you, in that area. So now, what's interesting is that Joseph cries, and it's basically a total of more than anybody in the Tanakh that we read about crying a lot. He reads about 4, something people might say 6 times, but basically 4 to be safe, on the safe side, 4 times. But we cried more than anybody else in the scriptures and stuff like that. So he had a heart. He definitely had a heart, and it could be touched, emotionally. And one of the things too, when he said, I am Joseph, that name never came up in the description at any time from the other brothers. So when he said he's Joseph, now that will stun you. Where do you get that name from? That name ain't popular down here in Egypt. That's not an Egyptian type name. He's in the wrong neighborhood. We know him as Zaphnath-Paneah. That's what we know him as. And he speaking Egyptian fluently, through the interpreter. So the first time you have an interpreter there. So, but to make a long story short, he sent him down, and then when they told Jacob that Joseph was alive, and when they come back, automatically that when Joseph was alive, Jacob come on down to Egypt, and he said when he seen the wagons. And it's a lot of stuff I'm gonna leave right here. Probably jump on it a little bit next time before I go into and go straight into the Psalms. So, but we know automatically that he goes and tell him going back down. He identify himself and sent for him in a raw manner, and Pharaoh was okay with that. So I'm gonna touch on a little bit on this when we get ready to close out on YAH. Next time. So with that, we're going straight to a few verses in the book of Psalms, the 40th chapter of Psalms, and then I'm going to focus on the 48th chapter that goes along with Vayigash. So if we get to the 40th chapter, we're going to go a few verses in the 40th chapter, which is in the first book, and it's a Psalm of David for the leader. It's Psalm of David.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
We're in the book of Psalms, chapter 40, verse 1. For the leader, a psalm of David. I waited patiently for Yehudah, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up also out of the tumultuous pit, out of the merry clay. And he set my feet upon a rock, and he established my goings.
Hold right there. Stop right there before we go any further. All right. That would imply, this is like Joseph's episode, his lifestyle. He was thrown in a pit, and he was thrown into a dungeon. So, and the Creator brought him out, and when the Creator brought him out, he was established as the most powerful man next to Pharaoh in Egypt, the civilization of that time. So that's one of the things you can see a correlation with the story of Mikhail, at the end of 2 years, from being put down to be risen back up. So and this is a testimony, and it's a Psalm of David, because it says not only is a testimony for Joseph, his actual life, but it's a testimony for all. It could work for all of us. All right, let's go a couple more verses. And the fourth verse, we stop there.
Verse 4. And he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see and fear and shall trust in Yehovah.
Okay, right there. All right, we're gonna stop right there because we know that the fifth verse is happy is the man that had made the Lord his trust. All right, Joseph wound up doing 2 extra years because he trusted in another individual. All right, so but the thing is that if you keep your trust in the Creator, then that's then you're pretty much on solid ground. But when you trust in man, then he needs some help. It say, oh Lord, please help this man remember. Then you might as well talk to the Lord, help me get out of this directly. But we're gonna go in the 48th chapter of Psalm, which is 15 verse.
We're in Psalms chapter 48.
Yeah, 48. And the thing about this psalm, now this is in book 2, is a song of Korah, and this psalm, it's really it's read every Monday in the synagogue. For those that follow tradition, you can have a psalm for a day, so psalm of the day of the week, and out the 7 psalms that they have for the days of the week, this psalm is also read every Monday. And we know, and then say the second day of the week, which is basically when we know in the creation story that what was created on the second day of the week, the heavens. There was a division there, so there's a separation, and something that's reunited. So we find also when we think about the actual Torah for Vayigash in the book of Ezekiel, that he talk about the 2 sticks, one for Ephraim, one for Yehudah, and they were separate, and they had to be joined together. But going back to Mikha's, we know that the Torah was for in the book of Kings, where Solomon had his dream, and his dream established him as a wise individual. And Joseph was considered a wise individual as well, the Torah itself. So, being Genesis ends with dreams, they had the Torah that has a dream that's dealt with that. And this particular portion here, the second day of the week, where you find a division made, because you don't read where it was a division when it said, let it be light, and it was light. But yet you find, you find some division, but not division to the degree where you have the same item being divided yourself. So, and this is dealing with the same item being divided by itself. We talk about the heavens and the water being made from the waters under the earth, and the waters that go above the earth on the second day. So this psalm is, like I said, read every Monday morning, and those that follow, a particular type of prayer traditionally. All right. So and we know Korah is one of the individuals. His ancestors, the sons of Korah, rather. I didn't say Korah, I meant to say sons of Korah. Excuse me if I did say that. The sons of Korah themselves, their father stood against Moses and his family. They stood against Moses, and they were saved from the catastrophe. So we could pick it up from the 48th chapter.
We're in the book of Psalms, chapter 48, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
A psalm of the sons of Korah. Great is Yehovah and highly to be praised in the city of our God, his holy mountain. Fair in situation, the joy the whole earth. Even Mount Zion, the uttermost parts of the north, the city of the great king.
Hold right there. All right. Now, first of all, let's start talking about how great to be praised. Most of us, like I spoke on before, usually prayer should be praise, thanks, and then if you got to have a problem, ask God to straighten it out. So a lot of times we worry and focus on the problem, but here, these people focus on the thanks, the gratitude. Because if we think about our gratitude, then, you know, how much we thank the Creator for what He do for us in our life, then we have more to thank Him for than what we need. But we still focus on the need. So we focus on the minor part instead of even considering the major part. The Creator did much more for us, you know, and we don't want to find it missing in us. And then one of the things too, the north side is where they offer up the sacrifice, especially on the sin offerings and Yom Kippur and everything like that. And that's where the city of David was towards the north part of the temple when it was built and erected. All right. So we're gonna push on fourth. Sorry.
Verse 4 reads, God in her palaces have made himself known for a stronghold. For lo, the kings assembled themselves, they came onward together. They saw straightway, they were amazed. They were affrighted, they'd hasted away. Tremble took hold of them, their pangs as a woman in travail. With the east wind thou breakest the ships of Tarshish. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of Yehovah of hosts, in the city of our God. God established it forever, Selah.
All right, right there. Now, even when we was attacked, and when people come up against us, when we're doing right, you know, we had times where armies came and was wiped out, and not one Israelite drew a sword or shot one arrow to win the battle. And of course, the people turn. You know, when the Creator have a delight in us to do those things. So Tarshish was actually a spot, you know, one of the spots over about the northern part of Africa, where invaders would come in. So we had a lot of invasion come from the north. You understand also that we offer our sin offers in the north part. You know, when we slaughter and everything, the blood is towards the northern part of the temple itself. And David's city was lied towards the north. But the Creator, He the one protects us. He the one to look out for us. So just keeping it condensed in a nutshell, the thing is that when we're doing right, people looked at it and they said, look, they see God working for us, because there ain't no way these people supposed to be able to whip us. Ain't no way that we not supposed to be able to conquer them. You know, in the month of Tibet, we coming up on what you call a fast, one of man-made fast that we had concerning the siege of the Babylonians and in the 10th month. And you notice that at the siege, just so the fast would be, for those that look at a secular calendar, would be this January 3rd, 2023. And basically a daytime fast. Start early in the morning and usually ends, later on in the evening. But that's a man-made fast. But the thing was that if you say from the 10th month, then you go to the 11th, the 12th, and then they only break the walls in the 4th month of the following year. And then it takes 3 weeks before they actually destroy the temple. We had to be doing some really, really unsavory stuff. But to only be out there from the 10th month. So you figure the 11th month, the 12th month, then you're talking about the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th month. And they only breach the gate, the walls. And then the 5th month, 7 months. What army take that long to beat up a city? And we ain't throwing nobody out to fight. So that the Creator gave us a lot of chances to try to, to protect us. But sometimes we get in the way of Him protecting us. But let's read a little bit further.
Verse 10, it reads, we have taught on thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. As in thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion be glad. Let the daughters of Judah rejoice because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion and go round about her. Count the towers thereof. Mark ye well her ramparts, traverse her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For such is God our God, forever and ever. He will guide us eternally. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And the last part, I used the word al-mut, and the mut usually means death, but when you make it as one word, it means like the youth, the guide, because youth sometimes need to be guided. Most of the times today, most of us fail in guiding our youth. And a lot of times we say, well, he's grown, he's old enough, we don't need to, tell him what to do. They're supposed to know what's, the right way to go. But sometimes people, and most of the times, people are going to go where pleasure is. Evil, wickedness is always attractive. It's never going to be ugly. It's only ugly because of what it does and the results of it. But anything you could think of that's not any good that you wind up doing is because it was attractive to you. It was pleasurable to you. It was desirable to you. And the thing is that's why everybody needs some guidance, and the children are going to go with where's the least resistance at. And that's what it's about. It takes strength and courage to serve the Creator. It takes strength and courage to have trust in the Creator. And a lot of times, we focus on, in our lifestyle, we ask the problem of why this is a sin instead of thinking about what is the sin. So that's the thing. We gotta get the question, not so much why the evil is on us, but what is the evil there? And so I hope you got something out of what I said. I know I was, went kind of long trying to condense two sidropes and two psalms, Tehillim. But as we go forward, the greatest resolution is making a revolution in your life. Change is never comfortable. You're always moving out your comfort zone. But if you have a genuine concern for other people, you have a genuine concern about, uplifting fallen humanity, then you'll be considerate of all those that's near around about you. Because most people say, well, in this time of year, they can talk about our New Year's resolution. And some of the New Year's resolution, for those that follow the secular calendar, is that I'm going to work out now. You say, work out. That's the main topic. That's the top of your agenda, is that I'm going to get in shape physically. I'm going to go ahead and go to the gym. I'm going to do a few laps. I'm going to punch the bag a little bit. I'm going to throw a few iron and steel up. That's the resolution. Not about, I'm going to say, well, I'm going to try to make a change in my life for the better. We pass through a time into the dedication, but we got to constantly, each and every day, we dedicate ourselves. Every prayer that we say, though we have a formula of prayer, and every congregation you go, they got a particular style of how they do their prayer. If you don't have the enthusiasm every time you say your prayer, and it become routine, then you got to question not why, but what it is concerning it. All right. So with that, I hope you got something about what I said. Any mistakes been my own, I say Shalom Aleichem and an early Shabbat Shalom. And if you have any questions, please, or statements or any mistakes, just leave it in the chat, and I'll get a chance to look at it. And if I can address it, I'll try my best to address it. All right,
Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. Thank you for the wisdom and the understanding, and I pray that the Most High God, King of the universe, be with us all. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a great day. Shalom.